Welcome to Science for Sleepy Minds. In your room, there may be a thin stripe of moonlight resting on the floor, or a pale glow softening the edge of a curtain, and it can feel as if the night itself has gently shifted after midnight. The strange part is that the moon can be exactly the same moon you saw earlier, and yet it seems to behave differently to your eyes and to your thoughts. Shadows can feel quieter, the light can feel cleaner or softer, and your mind can start to notice tiny details it ignored before. So what is actually changing, and what is only changing in the way you sense it? Tonight, we'll follow a hidden pattern that lives in 3 places at once. In the moon's angle, in the sky, in the air the light travels through, and in the sleepy chemistry of your own brain. You don't need to stay awake for all of it, not at all, because your body already knows how to drift. And by the end, in the simplest way, you'll understand why after midnight can feel like a turning point, even though the sky is moving in the same slow, steady way it always does. If you're tired, you're in the right place. If you're restless, that's also okay. There's nothing you need to achieve here. You can listen lightly, like you're holding a warm cup with both hands, not gripping it tightly, just letting the warmth be there. If sleep arrives in the middle of a sentence, that's not a mistake. That is the whole idea. This is a soft space for learning and relaxation together. No pressure to remember. The facts can float by like small boats on dark water, and you can watch them for a moment, then let them drift out of sight. If you'd like more gentle science nights like this, you can like and subscribe. And now, back to the quiet. Take a slow breath in, the kind that doesn't strain your chest, just a simple inhale that feels natural, and let it out a little longer than you breathed in, as if you're fogging a window very softly. In and out. Again, in and out. There is no perfect rhythm, just a slow, friendly pace that tells your body it does not have to hurry. As you breathe, see if you can let your jaw loosen, just a little, like you're making room for calm. Let your tongue rest comfortably. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears, even if it's only a few millimeters. Soften your hands, let your fingers be gently curved instead of holding themselves stiff. If your legs feel tense, imagine them growing heavier, as if the mattress is welcoming them down. If something still feels slightly uncomfortable, you can adjust. A small shift of the pillow, a tiny change in the blanket, a gentle turn of your head. Then settle into good enough. Not perfect, just safe. Like sand settling to the bottom of clear water, slowly, patiently, with no argument. Now let the room around you become part of the story. Even with your eyes closed, you can sense it. The shape of the space, the quiet objects, the corners that hold stillness. And somewhere maybe there is moonlight. Imagine a thin stripe of pale light on the floor, as if the moon has placed a ribbon there. It might cut across a rug. It might touch the edge of a chair leg. It might make the wall look slightly silver where it lands. And the stripe is not frozen. It is moving so slowly that you can't see it move in the moment, but you can notice it has shifted if you look again later. After midnight, that movement can feel especially noticeable, because the rest of the world often becomes quieter. Fewer voices, fewer cars, fewer small disturbances, deeper shadows, a feeling of the whole neighborhood breathing slower. Now imagine, just for a moment, stepping to a window. The glass is cool. The air on the other side feels different from the air in your room, even if only by a little. The night has a faint scent, maybe of dust or distant leaves or simply coolness itself. And beyond the window, the moon is there, hanging in the sky like a calm thought you can't quite let go of. Sometimes after midnight, the moon is higher than it was earlier. Sometimes it is leaning toward the west, as if it's slowly making its way to another side of the world. Sometimes it looks bright and clean, and sometimes it looks softened, as if the air has laid a thin veil over it. And the shadows it makes can stretch in a different direction than you expect, like quiet hands pointing without speaking. So when we say what the moon changes after midnight, what do we mean? We'll explore two kinds of change. The first is an apparent change, which simply means a change in how things look from where you are. That includes the moon's position in the sky, the direction of moonlight, and the way shadows fall in your room or on the street. The second is a real interaction, which simply means a real effect the moon has on Earth, whether or not anyone is watching. The clearest example is the ocean tides, the slow rise and fall of the sea, guided partly by the moon's pull, and we'll also touch something softer and closer to home. How light, even gentle moonlight can interact with sleep, timing and attention. To keep everything calm and simple, we'll hold one guiding idea in our hands like a smooth stone. After midnight, 3 layers overlap. The first layer is sky geometry, which simply means the arrangement of where things are in the sky and the direction light comes from. The second layer is Earth's atmosphere, which simply means the blanket of air around our planet that moonlight has to travel through. And the third layer is your sleeping brain, the part of you that's becoming more sensitive, more dreamy-o, and more ready to let go. You can imagine these 3 layers as 3 quiet doors. We'll open them slowly. And if you fall asleep while a door is opening, that door can stay half open. There is no test later. Now let's begin with something very familiar. The feeling that the moon is drifting. You may have seen it before without naming it. Moonlight in a room can change places across the night. A bright patch on the floor slides away from the window. A shadow from a tree branch shifts on a wall. Even outdoors, if you look at the moon, then look again later, it's not in the same spot. It seems to have moved, as if the moon is quietly travelling. But here's a gentle question. Is the moon really moving across your sky like that in the way it seems? Or is something else carrying you underneath it? The simplest truth is that Earth is turning, not fast in the way a spinning toy turns, but steady, like a slow wheel that never stops. Earth turns, and we are on it, and the whole sky seems to slide over us as we rotate. That's why the sun appears to move across the day sky, and it's why the moon appears to move across the night sky. The sky looks like it moving, but you are the one being gently carried. If you want a simple image, imagine you're sitting on a slow carousel in the dark, and the carousel turns you little by little. The lights around you seem to pass by, but really, you're rotating. Earth is like that carousel, and the moon is one of the steady lights in the distance. This turning is so normal, so constant that we rarely feel it. You don't feel the spin, because everything around you is spinning with you. Your room, your bed, the air inside, the ground beneath the building, it all belongs to the same turning Earth. So your body doesn't experience it as movement in the usual way, but your eyes can still notice its evidence in the slow slide of moonlight. Now think about midnight for a moment. Midnight can feel like a special line, like a boundary you cross. Before midnight is earlier, after midnight is later. It can even feel like the start of a new day, even if nothing outside changes suddenly. But midnight is mainly a clock label. It is a human way of drawing a neat line on the night. The sky does not stop and restart. Earth does not click into a new mode. The real change is simply that time continues, and Earth continues to turn, and your place on Earth faces a slightly different direction than it did an hour ago. So why does after midnight feel so different to so many people? Part of it is the quiet. Many places become calmer after midnight, and your attention becomes sharper to small things. Part of it is your body clock, which we will visit later. And part of it is geometry, that simple word for where things are. Because as Earth turns, the moon's angle changes. An angle, in the simplest sense, is just the direction the light comes from. If you've ever moved a bedside lamp from one side of the room to the other, you've seen how the same objects suddenly look different. The lamp is the same brightness, but the shadows slide and the shape of everything changes. the moon can feel like that lamp in the sky, not because it's close, but because its light comes from a particular direction, and that direction slowly changes over the night. You can notice this in the shadows. Imagine a tree outside and a thin branch that casts a line across a wall. In the early evening, the line might be angled one way. After midnight, it may tilt another way. The branch didn't move much. The wall didn't move, but the direction of the moon's light shifted. So the shadow became a kind of quiet clock hand. Shadows are timekeepers, but they're gentle ones. They don't tick, they don't demand attention, they simply stretch and slide with patience. And in a calm room, after midnight, you can feel how patient they are. Now if you're still awake, stay with one soft idea. The moon seems to move, but you are being carried by a turning earth. That is the first layer, sky geometry. And if you are already drifting, you can let that idea drift too, and keep only the feeling of slow turning, like being rocked, like being carried. Let's take that turning and make it a little more vivid, without making it complicated. If you could float above Earth and look down at it at night, you would see a curve of darkness and a curve of daylight. The boundary between them would be soft, like a shadowed edge. And as Earth rotates, that boundary moves. Places enter night, and later they leave it. Midnight is simply a moment when your location has rotated away from the sun as much as it will for that day. You're facing the deepest part of night. That's one reason after midnight can feel different. You're fully turned away from the bright busyness of daylight. The world is, in a sense, wearing its quiet side. But the moon is still there, and it is still shining with borrowed light. The moon does not make its own light. It reflects sunlight, which simply means it bounces sunlight back toward us, the way a pale stone might catch light and send it softly into a darker corner. That sunlight hits the moon, and the moon sends a gentle portion of it our way. So the moon is like a mirror in space, tilted just so, and because Earth turns, the way that reflected light lands on your world changes. The moon feels like it is travelling, but what's really happening is that your room is rotating underneath it, like a slow stage turning beneath a quiet spotlight. Now, after midnight, the moon is often on a different part of its path than it was earlier. You can imagine the moon making a slow arc across the sky, like a boat crossing a dark lake, not rushing, not splashing, just gliding. This arc is the path it seems to take from your point of view as Earth turns. In the evening you might see it rising or climbing, later you may see it higher. After midnight it may begin to lean toward the west, slowly lowering, slowly moving toward where it will eventually set. But even if you don't see it directly, you may feel its presence in the pattern of light. The stripe on your floor, the glimmer on a leaf, the soft brightness on a quiet street. And this brings us to another gentle question. Why does moonlight sometimes feel brighter after midnight? Why does it sometimes feel clearer, as if the night has polished it? A simple reason is height. When the moon is higher in the sky, its light often passes through less air to reach you. Less air to travel through can mean less scattering, which simply means less light being spread out and softened by tiny bits in the atmosphere. In everyday words, or it can look cleaner. Sharper edges, darker shadows, a crisper glow. When the moon is low near the horizon, its light travels through more air. The atmosphere is thicker along that slanted path, like looking through a long hallway instead of a short doorway. That can soften and tint the light, making it feel more golden or more muted, depending on the air and the weather. You don't need to hold on to the details, just keep the simple picture. Higher moon, shorter path through air. Lower moon, longer path through air. And after midnight, the moon may be higher or differently placed than it was earlier, depending on the night and where you live. Now, there is something else that can confuse this in a gentle way, and it's worth naming so you don't wonder later. The moon has phases, That word phase simply means the moon's changing shape in the sky across the month. Sometimes it is a thin crescent, sometimes it is half, sometimes it is full and bright. That phase does not usually change much over a single night. It changes slowly across many nights, so if the moon looks different after midnight, it is usually not because its phase changed in those few hours. It is far more often because its position and angle changed, and because the air and your eyes changed. And your eyes do change. Your eyes are not fixed cameras. They adapt. They become more sensitive in darkness. That sensitivity is a quiet gift, and it can also make faint light feel stronger than it did earlier. After midnight, you may have been in darkness longer. You may be more relaxed. You may be more tuned to the subtle. So a small stripe of moonlight can feel like a message even though it is simply light. Isn't that interesting? The moon can be doing the same gentle thing, and your perception of it can grow more vivid because you are changing too. In a moment, we'll continue to follow the moon's path and the air it travels through, but for now, just let this idea settle softly. What you see after midnight is a blend of the sky's slow geometry and your own slow shift into sleep. If you want, you can return to your breath for a few quiet seconds, in and out. Let the exhale be slightly longer. Let your body feel supported by the bed. Let your thoughts come and go without grabbing any of them. Now imagine again that stripe of moonlight. Picture it a little more clearly, like a gentle line drawn across the room. It touches the floor, then fades into shadow. The boundary between light and dark is not harsh, it's soft, and the line is moving. Not like a clock hand that jumps, but like water moving under ice. This movement is the fingerprint of Earth's rotation. You don't need to feel Earth spinning in your stomach. You can simply see it as the moon's light shifting across your world. Even if you never look out a window, the turning is happening calmly, steadily, like a lullaby that never ends. And after midnight is not a sharp cliff. It is more like passing into deeper water. The same ocean, but quieter, darker, more reflective. Soon we'll talk about the air itself, the atmosphere, and how it changes through the night. That atmosphere is a blanket of air wrapped around Earth, and moonlight has to travel through it to reach you. Some nights the blanket is thin and clear, some nights it is moist or hazy, some nights it shimmers with tiny changes in temperature, and after midnight the blanket can behave differently than it did in the early evening. But before we go there, it's comforting to look once more at what does not change. The moon is not suddenly becoming a different object after midnight. It is not switching on a new kind of power like a lamp with two settings. It is simply there, reflecting sunlight while you rotate beneath it. The changes you notice are changes of angle, changes of air, and changes in the way your sleepy mind meets the night. And that is already enough to make the world feel gently transformed. If you're still awake, imagine the moon outside your window now, even if clouds hide it. Imagine it continuing its slow arc, not in a hurry, just gliding. Imagine the shadows in your room obeying quietly, shifting their shape without complaint. Imagine time itself as a soft creature, padding along the hallway, not stomping, not shouting, just moving, one silent step after another. What happens if you stop resisting that movement and simply let it carry you? You can let the story carry you too, because as the night goes on, the moon's angle continues to change, and that angle changes the direction of light. And with that direction, the whole world's contrast can soften or sharpen. A leaf can look etched, a wall can look smoother, a familiar street can look new. In the next stretch of our quiet journey, we'll watch that angle more closely, in the simplest way, and we'll begin to notice how the air can act like a gentle filter. And we'll do it slowly, with no pressure, the way you might watch ripples fade on a pond until you can't tell where one ripple ends and another begins. For now, just rest with the feeling of slow turning, Earth turning, the moon seeming to drift, light sliding across the floor, your breath rising and falling, your mind becoming softer around the edges. And if sleep is already approaching, you can let it come closer, like a familiar friend that never needs an explanation. If you're still awake, you can simply let your attention come back, the way a small boat drifts back toward a quiet shore. And if you're not fully awake, if you're already half dreaming, that's perfect too. You don't have to hold on tightly. You can listen as if you're listening from far away, through a soft blanket. Somewhere outside your room, the moon is continuing its Soshkau, even if you can't see it, even if clouds are resting in front of it like pale curtains, even if your eyes stay closed. The moon keeps moving across your sky in the way it always does, and Earth keeps turning under you steady and calm. A moment ago, we held on to one simple idea. The moon seems to drift, because Earth is turning, and the moonlight in your room, that thin stripe or faint glow, is like a quiet signature of that turning. Now, let's stay with that stripe of light for a little longer and gently widen our view. Imagine you are looking at the moon from a calm place, like a porch or a window, and you notice it is not fixed. It follows a path. In the early evening, it might be rising, climbing up from the edge of rooftops or treetops. Later, it might feel higher, more centered, more settled. And after midnight, it often feels as if it is leaning toward the west, like it is slowly preparing to leave the stage. This is not the moon changing its mind. This is simply geometry, which means where things are and how the lines between them are arranged. From where you are on Earth, the moon appears to move along an arc, a curved track across the sky. If you like imagery, you can picture it like a quiet boat crossing a dark lake, leaving no wake, just shifting position by degrees you don't need to measure. And here is a gentle question you can let float in your mind. Why does that path matter so much for how the night feels? It matters because light is directional. Light arrives from somewhere. It doesn't just fill space equally, like water poured into a bowl. It comes from an angle. Angle is a simple word, even though it sometimes sounds like a school word. Here, angle just means the direction the light is coming from. Think of a bedside lamp. If you place the lamp on your left, the shadow of a cup falls to the right. If you move the lamp to your right, the shadow of the same cup falls to the left. Nothing about the cup changes. The lamp is still a lamp, but the direction of light changes, and the whole scene changes with it. Moonlight works the same way, only slower and farther away. As the moon seems to slide across the sky, the direction of its light shifts, and so the shadows in your world shift too. A tree branch shadow on a wall can tilt. The shadow under a railing can stretch. The bright patch on a floor can creep a few centimeters, then a few more, patient and quiet. After midnight, this can become more noticeable for a simple reason. Many people are no longer making noise. Many lights are turned off. The world feels calmer, so small movements stand out more clearly. It's almost as if the night itself becomes a better screen for moonlight to paint on. Now, you might have noticed that sometimes the moon looks brighter later at night, and sometimes it looks softer, and sometimes it looks strangely crisp, like the air has been rinsed clean. So what is that about? One calm explanation is height in the sky. When the moon is higher, its light often travels through less atmosphere to reach you. The atmosphere is the air around Earth, which we will explore more deeply in a moment. For now, just think of it as a thick blanket the light has to pass through. When the moon is low near the horizon, that blanket is effectively thicker along the path the light takes. The light is coming to you at a slant, like a long diagonal line through a foggy room. The longer the path through air, the more chances the light has to be softened, scattered, or tinted. Scattered simply means spread out. Imagine a beam of light passing through steam from a kettle. The steam is made of tiny droplets. They bump the light around so the beam looks less sharp. The light becomes more diffuse, more gentle, more blurry at the edges. The sky can do something similar in its own quiet way, so sometimes, when the moon rises higher later in the night, it can look clearer because its light is travelling through a shorter slice of air. It doesn't have as much atmosphere to push through. That can make the glow feel cleaner, and it can make shadows look more defined. But this is not a rule that always feels the same, because the air itself can change too. Some nights the air is very dry and clear, some nights the air holds moisture, some nights there is haze, some nights there is a thin veil of cloud. So the moon's brightness is partly about geometry, and partly about the current mood of the air. If you want a very simple phrase to hold on to, you can keep this one. The moon's position changes the direction of light, and the air changes the texture of light. Direction and texture. Direction decides where shadows fall. Texture decides whether the light feels sharp or soft. Now let's take a small detour that helps many people feel less confused when they notice changes across one night. The moon has phases. Phase means the shape you see, the portion of the moon that looks lit. Sometimes it's a crescent. Sometimes it's half, sometimes it's full. Those changes happen across many nights, not usually within a few hours. So if the moon looks different after midnight, it's almost never because the phase changed during the night. It's more likely because the moon moved across the sky, changing its angle, and because the air and your eyes change too. Your eyes are not the same at 9 PM, and at 2 AM eyes adapt. They become more sensitive in darkness. They collect light more carefully. They shift gears quietly without asking your permission. And your mind adapts too. Tiredness makes perception softer in some ways, sharper in others. Tiny signals can feel meaningful. A stripe of light can feel like a presence. A shadow line can feel like a message. Nothing is wrong with you when that happens. It is a normal feature of being human late at night. When the world quiets down, your brain has more room to notice subtle things. So after midnight, the moon can feel like it is doing something special even when it is doing what it always does. Now let's make that idea a little more personal in a gentle way. If you're lying in bed, eyes closed, you can imagine the moon's arc without needing to see it. Picture it as a slow curve. Earlier in the night it might have been lower. Later it might be higher. After midnight it might be sliding toward the west, as if it is slowly being pulled toward the edge of your window frame. And if you were to check it again later, it would be in a different place. This is a comforting thought if you let it be, because it means time is passing whether or not you're tracking it. The night will move forward whether or not you solve your thoughts. You don't have to push the night. The night is already moving, you can let it carry you. Now, while the moon makes its slow path, the air between you and the moon is not empty. It is full of tiny things, invisible things, small things, a whole world of particles and moisture and temperature layers. And after midnight, that air often changes. This is where we gently open the second door, the atmosphere. Atmosphere is simply the blanket of air around Earth. It's what you breathe. It's what the wind is made of. It's what clouds are formed within. It's what light passes through on its way to you. You can think of atmosphere as a clear ocean of air that you live at the bottom of. And just like an ocean, it has currents. During the day, sunlight warms the ground and warm air rises. This can make the air more mixed and more active. In the evening, the ground begins to cool, and as it cools, the air can calm down too. After midnight, in many places, the air becomes cooler and more settled. Have you ever walked outside late at night and felt that the air had a different texture? Less busy, less shimmering, more still. That's not just your imagination. The air can change in a way that affects how light travels. When air is warm and rising in little currents, it can make light shimmer slightly. It can blur edges. It can change the way distant lights look, like street lamps or stars. When air is calmer, edges can look steadier, and the moon can look more cleanly outlined. But again, it depends on your local conditions. Sometimes cooling air can also trap moisture near the ground, making haze or mist. Sometimes it clears the view. Sometimes it softens it. The atmosphere is not one simple thing, it is always alive, always shifting. Still, there are a few gentle patterns that often show up, and we can explore them in a calm bedtime way. One pattern is cooling. After the sun sets, the ground slowly releases heat. That can lead to cooler air near the surface. Cooler air often holds less water vapor than warmer air, which can sometimes mean the air feels drier and clearer, but sometimes it also means moisture condenses into tiny droplets, forming fog or mist. In both cases, the air is changing its relationship with water. Water in the air matters for light, because tiny droplets can scatter light. Scatter means they nudge light in different directions. This can make the moon's glow look larger, softer, more halo-like. Have you ever seen the moon with a faint ring around it, a gentle halo? That is often a sign of moisture or thin cloud, shaping the moonlight into a soft pattern. Sometimes that halo feels especially visible late at night, when your eyes are more adapted to darkness and the surrounding lights are fewer. Another pattern is human activity. In many places, after midnight, fewer cars are moving, fewer chimneys are active, fewer tiny bits of dust are being stirred into the air by traffic and daily movement. This can, in some places, make the air a little calmer and a little cleaner. Not always, not everywhere, but it can happen. And when it happens, moonlight can look clearer. It's a quiet thought, isn't it? The night not only changes because Earth turns, but because humans rest. The air itself can feel as if it is settling down because the world is settling down, and the moon's light travelling through that quieter air can feel different. There is also the simple reality of layers. The atmosphere isn't the same density everywhere at once, or it has layers of temperature, layers of moisture, layers of tiny particles. Sometimes these layers sit stacked calmly, sometimes they mix. Light passing through layered air can be bent slightly, not dramatically in the way of a lens you hold in your hand, but subtly, so that the moon can appear in a slightly different place than you might expect. This is called refraction, which simply means bending. You don't need to remember the word, you can remember the idea. The atmosphere can act like a soft lens. It can nudge the path of light just a little. This is one reason the moon can look a bit larger near the horizon, or a bit distorted when it's low. Some of that is your own perception, and some of it is the air bending and scattering light along a longer path. After midnight, as the moon's position changes and sometimes rises higher or slides lower, you are seeing it through a different thickness of air, and as the air itself cools and shifts, you're seeing it through a different kind of air. So the moon can look clearer, softer, or more shimmering not because the moon has changed its surface, but because the medium between you and the moon has changed. Medium is simply a word that means the stuff in between. Here, the stuff in between is the atmosphere. Now, there is a cozy way to use moonlight that many people have never thought about. You can treat the moon as a kind of gentle test light. Not a harsh test, not an exam, more like a small candle that tells you about the room. If the moon looks crisp and bright, the air may be clearer, or the moon may be higher, or your eyes may be very adapted to darkness. If the moon looks softened and haloed, the air may have moisture or thin cloud. If the moon looks slightly dim and washed, there may be haze, dust, or thicker cloud. In this way, then the moon becomes a quiet messenger about the state of the air. And because air often shifts through the night, the message can change after midnight. Now, if you are feeling sleepy, you can let these ideas become simpler. The moon is a light source in the sense that it sends light to you, not its own light, but reflected sunlight. The atmosphere is the filter. Sometimes the filter is clear, sometimes it is soft. After midnight, both the moon's angle and the filter can change, and you are the observer changing too. You can imagine those three layers again. direction in the sky, texture in the air, sensitivity in you. If you like a gentle image, picture moonlight like a long, quiet thread. The thread starts at the sun, which shines on the moon. The thread continues from the moon toward Earth, and then the thread travels through the atmosphere through layers of air. Finally, it reaches your window and slips into your room as a pale stripe. Along the way, the thread can be straight or slightly bent. It can be sharp or softened. It can be dimmed by haze or brightened by clear air. And after midnight, the thread is taking a slightly different path than it did earlier, because Earth has turned, and because the air has changed, and because you have changed. This can be strangely comforting because it means your late night feelings have a physical world underneath them. Not in a heavy clinical way, in a gentle grounding way. The night is not only in your head, it's also in the geometry of the sky and the behaviour of the air. If you've ever felt that after midnight your thoughts become more vivid, or more slippery, or more emotional, you're not alone. Many people notice that, and we're going to treat that experience kindly, because now we are nearing the third door, your midnight mind. But before we open it, let's linger one more moment with the atmosphere and let it become even softer. Imagine the air outside as a slow-moving lake, but made of air instead of water. Early in the evening, the lake may have more ripples, stirred by warmth and movement. Later, after midnight, the ripples may calm, or the lake may gather a little mist near the surface like a thin breath. In either case, moonlight crossing that air lake will look different. It might sparkle slightly like light on water. It might blur at the edges like light behind gauze. It might look steady and clear like a bright pebble seen through still water. And you can rest in the idea that all of these are normal phases of the same night. Nothing is going wrong if the moon looks softer. Nothing is going wrong if it looks sharp. Nothing is wrong if you don't look at it at all. The moon is doing what it does, the air is doing what it does, and your body is slowly moving toward rest, which is what it does when you let it. If you want, take one gentle breath again, in and out. Let your exhale lengthen. Feel how your chest and belly settle lower, like a calm tide receding. And now, in the next stretch of our quiet journey, we'll begin to notice how your own inner timing changes after midnight. We'll talk about the body clock, which simply means your built-in daily rhythm. We'll talk about melatonin, which is a night signal in the brain, which simply means it helps your body feel sleepy. And we'll talk about why moonlight can feel stronger or more meaningful when you're already deep in night. But you don't have to stay awake for any of that. You can let the words arrive and fade, like moonlight on the floor, sliding quietly, then dissolving into shadow. And as you listen, you can let your attention sink a little deeper into the bed, as if your thoughts are becoming heavier and quieter, like stones settling into soft sand. Now we open that third door, gently, without forcing it, the door of your midnight mind. You may have noticed that the mind has different weather at different hours. In the morning, thoughts can be brisk and practical. In the afternoon, they can be busy and scattered. And late at night, especially after midnight, thoughts can become slow, wide, and strangely tender. Old memories can drift closer. Small worries can feel larger. Or the opposite can happen, where everything feels distant and dreamy, as if you're watching life through a thin veil. If you've experienced that, you don't need to judge it. It's not a personal flaw, it's not you doing night wrong. It's simply what many human brains do when they're tired and the world is quiet. After midnight, your body clock is doing its night work. Body clock is a simple phrase, but the science term is circadian rhythm, which simply means your inner daily timing system. It's the rhythm that helps you feel awake at certain times and sleepy at others, even if you don't look at a clock. It's like an internal tide, rising and falling each day in a steady pattern. That rhythm is shaped by many things, but light is one of the strongest. Daylight tells your brain, this is day. Darkness tells your brain, this is night. And your brain responds with a whole set of gentle changes, like dimming lights in a house room by the room. One of the best-known night signals is melatonin, which simply means a chemical messenger that helps your body move towards sleep. It doesn't knock you out like a switch, it's more like a quiet reminder. A soft note slipped under the door that says, it's safe to slow down. And after midnight, in many people, that night signal is well underway. Your body temperature may be lower, your muscles may be more willing to relax, your mind may be more likely to drift, even if it still tries to hold on to a thought here and there. This is why moonlight can feel different after midnight, even if the moon has not changed in any dramatic way, because you have changed. Your eyes have adapted to darkness, your attention has become more sensitive to subtle light. Your brain is doing that nighttime pattern, making it loves to do when it's half asleep. Here's a gentle way to picture it. In the daytime, your brain is like a bright room full of activity. Many signals compete for attention. Screens, voices, tasks, messages. The moon, if you see it at all, is just one small detail. But late at night, the room is dim. There are fewer signals. The brain has space. And so the moon can feel bigger. Not physically bigger, but bigger in meaning. Have you ever noticed how a small sound at night can feel loud? Not because it is louder, but because everything else is quiet. Moonlight can be similar. A faint glow can feel strong because your senses are tuned to darkness. That tuning is not imaginary. It's part of how vision works. In bright conditions, your eyes rely more on cone cells, which help with colour and fine detail. In dim conditions, your eyes rely more on rod cells, which are more sensitive to low light. You don't need to remember those names. The simple idea is this. In darkness, your eyes shift into a more sensitive mode. And when your eyes are in that mode, a little bit of moonlight can seem more noticeable than it would earlier in the evening, especially if you've been in darkness for a while. So when you look at the moon after midnight, or when you notice a stripe of light in your room, you may be seeing it through a more sensitive system. That can make the moon feel sharper, or it can make the moon feel more luminous, more present. And your mind, in its sleepy state, might respond with quiet questions. Why does this light feel so calm? Why does the world look different? Why do shadows look like they're breathing? Those are not questions you need to answer tonight. They can simply be part of the softness. After midnight, the mind also changes how it holds time. During the day, time can feel like a straight line you have to walk. There are plans, there are tasks, there are expectations. But late at night, time can feel more like a pool. You float in it. Minutes can stretch. A single thought can take up the whole space, or the opposite happens, and an hour disappears without you noticing. This is one reason the moon can feel like a special companion after midnight. The moon's movement is steady and slow. It doesn't match the anxious feeling of rushed time. It matches the quieter feeling of nighttime. And that match can be soothing. If your thoughts are busy right now, you can use the moon as a gentle anchor, even if you can't see it. You can imagine the moon continuing its slow arc. You can imagine moonlight touching rooftops, then roads, then tree leaves, then the side of a building. You can imagine the light entering a room somewhere and laying a pale line across the floor, just like the one we imagined in your room. And you can tell yourself softly that the night is moving at a pace you can trust. Now, there is a tender detail about the midnight mind that is worth knowing, because it can help you be kinder to yourself. When you are tired, your brain is more likely to search for meaning in small things. It does this because the logical daytime part of the brain is quieter, and the emotional pattern-making part can become more active. Pattern-making is not a mistake. It is a human strength. It helps you learn, it helps you predict, it helps you connect dots. But at night, pattern-making can sometimes turn toward worry. It can connect dots in a way that makes a harmless moment feel heavy. If that happens to you, you can treat it gently. You can remind yourself that tired brains can make things feel more intense than they are. You don't have to solve every thought at 2 a.m. You can let the thought pass like a cloud across the moon. And that, in a way, brings us back to the title again. What the moon changes after midnight. Sometimes the moon changes what you notice. Not because it is controlling you, but because it gives your mind something simple to hold on to. A steady light. A steady rhythm. After midnight, the moon can act like a calm mirror for attention. The world is quiet, and the moon's presence becomes easier to feel. Your senses are tuned to subtlety, and the moon's light becomes a little more vivid. So if you've ever felt that the moon does something to your mood late at night, the kindest way to say it is this. The moon's light is one part of your environment, and environments shape feelings. Light can shape sleepiness, quiet can shape thoughts, and after midnight, your body clock is already in a softer phase. The moon isn't a magic switch. It's a gentle ingredient in a very gentle recipe. Now let's connect this back to those 3 layers again, because repetition can be soothing. The first layer is the moon's angle in the sky. That changes because Earth turns. The second layer is the atmosphere, the air the light travels through. That can change as the night cools and settles. The third layer is you. Your eyes become more sensitive in darkness. Your brain shifts into a sleep-friendly mode. Your attention becomes quieter and deeper. So after midnight, you may not be seeing a different moon. You may be seeing the same moon through different layers, and that can be enough to make the night feel transformed. If you want to settle again, you can take one slow breath, in and out. Let your shoulders soften. Let your face become smooth. Let your eyelids feel heavy, as if they're resting in warm water. Now, we're going to widen our view, again, gently, and move from your room to the wider Earth. Because there is something the moon truly changes whether you are awake or asleep, whether you feel it or not. The tides. You might not live near the ocean, you might not have seen a tide in months or years, but right now, somewhere on Earth, the sea is rising against a shoreline. Somewhere else it is slowly pulling back. Somewhere, waves are climbing over wet sand, and somewhere else the sand is being uncovered again. It's happening quietly, like a breath. And the moon is part of that breath. Here is a calming way to begin. Imagine the ocean as a giant sleeping creature. Not scary, not wild, just vast and slow, as if the whole sea is inhaling and exhaling over many hours. That slow rise and fall is the tide. Now, to understand why the moon is involved, we need one very simple idea: gravity. Gravity is the pull between things, which simply means objects attract each other. Earth pulls you down toward the bed. The bed pushes back and holds you up. The moon pulls on Earth too, but much more gently than Earth pulls on you, because the moon is far away and not as massive as Earth. Still, that pull is real. It stretches Earth's ocean slightly. If you picture Earth as a round body wrapped in water, the moon's gravity pulls a bit more strongly on the water on the side facing the moon. That water is slightly closer to the moon, so it feels a slightly stronger tug. The result is a gentle bulge of water on the near side facing the moon. But here's the quiet contradiction that surprises many people, in a calm way. There is also a bulge on the far side of Earth away from the moon. Not because the moon is pulling water away on that side, but because Earth itself is being pulled toward the moon a little, and the far side water is left behind slightly, creating another bulge. You don't need to wrestle with the details, the simple picture is enough. 2 gentle bulges. One on the side closest to the moon, one on the far side. As Earth rotates under these bulges, different coastlines move into and out of the higher water zones, and that creates the cycle of high and low tides. It's like Earth is turning beneath 2 slow hills of water, and because the moon moves in its orbit too, the timing shifts a bit each day. Tides don't follow the clock the way bedtime does, they follow the moon's relationship to Earth. So sometimes a high tide happens after midnight in one place, sometimes it happens in the evening, sometimes it happens in the morning. It depends on where you are and on the day. But the key soothing truth is this: The moon is contributing to a steady rhythm that never really stops. The ocean is always breathing in that slow tidal way. So what does the moon change after midnight in the ocean? Not specifically after midnight as a magic hour, but throughout the night the moon's position matters for tides. The moon's pull continues, and Earth's rotation continues, and the sea continues to rise and fall. If you live near a coast, the tide you see at 2 a.m. might be higher or lower than it was at 10 p.m, depending on the schedule in your location. If you don't live near a coast, you can still let the image comfort you, because it means the whole planet is moving in gentle cycles even when your life feels stuck. Sometimes, when the mind is anxious, it feels like nothing changes. It feels like you're trapped in the same loop. But the world itself is always changing in slow, reliable ways. The moon is always shifting its angle. The air is always settling and reshaping its layers. The sea is always lifting and lowering its edge. And you two are always moving toward rest, even if you can't feel it in a straight line. Now there is another gentle detail about tides that can make the story feel even softer. The sun also affects tides. The sun is far away, but it is very massive, so its gravity matters too. When the sun and moon line up in a certain way, their pulls combine and tides can be stronger. When they're at right angles in the sky, tides can be weaker. This relates to the moon's phase, which we mentioned earlier. During a full moon and a new moon, the sun, earth and moon are more lined up and tides can be a bit stronger. During the quarter moons, they can be a bit weaker. You don't need the names, you can keep the feeling. Sometimes the ocean's breath is slightly deeper. Sometimes it is slightly shallower. And the moon is one of the hands shaping that breath. If you like a calm reframe, you can think of the moon as a quiet conductor of water, not ordering it around with force, but guiding it with a steady, gentle pull. And you can think of the tide as the slow music the earth plays, a music too slow to hear in a moment, but very real across hours. Now, after midnight, when the world is quiet, this ocean rhythm can feel especially comforting to imagine, because it reminds you that even if you are still awake, the night is not wasted. The planet is doing its slow work. Time is flowing. The edges of shorelines are shifting. The world is alive in quiet ways. And you can borrow that rhythm for your own breathing. In and out. In and out. Slow like the sea. If a thought tries to pull you into worry, you can let it be a wave that rises and falls. You don't have to climb onto it and ride it. You can simply watch it lift, then soften, then fade. Now let's come back to the title again one more time and let it sound very simple. After midnight, the moon changes the angle of its light. After midnight, the air can change the texture of that light. After midnight, your mind changes how it feels that light. And all night long, the moon helps shape the tide, the slow breathing of the sea. Those are gentle, real things. Nothing spooky, nothing harsh, just quiet physics and quiet biology meeting in a quiet hour. If you're still awake, you might notice your body feels slightly heavier now, as if it has been given permission to settle. If you're not awake, if you're drifting, then these words can just be a soft current under your sleep. Either way, you're safe. And as we continue, we'll keep the same calm pace. We'll let the science stay simple. We'll keep returning to gentle images, moonlight on a wall, cool night air, the sea breathing, the earth turning like a slow wheel. For now, rest in the idea that the night is not empty. The night is full of slow movements, and you are allowed to move slowly too. Now, as you rest, we can gently widen our view from the ocean to the living land, because moonlight touches more than water. It touches quiet streets and fields, tree canopies and garden soil, and the small lives that move when most humans are asleep. Imagine a simple scene first. A cat sits on a porch step, still as a statue, its ears turning slightly as if it can hear the shape of the night. A moth circles a faint porch light, drawing soft loops in the air. In the distance, an owl calls once, then waits. Nothing in this scene is urgent, nothing is loud. It is just the night, being the night. Some animals are active mostly at night. We call them nocturnal, which simply means they are awake and busy after dark. Other animals are active mostly in the day. We call them diurnal, which simply means they prefer daylight hours. And there are many creatures that sit somewhere in between, waking at dawn or dusk, moving in the gentle in-between times. Moonlight can matter to these lives, not as a magical signal, but as a practical one. Light changes what can be seen. It changes how safe a place feels. It changes where shadows fall and how easy it is to hide, and how easy it is to be noticed. If you have ever walked outside on a bright moonlit night, you might have felt the difference right away. The world is not as dark. The path is easier to see. The edges of objects are clearer. Your own footsteps might feel louder, not because they are louder, but because you can see more of the space around you. Moonlight can make the night feel more open. For some animals, that openness is helpful. For others, it is a reason to stay still. Think about a small mouse in grass. In deep darkness, the mouse can move with a little more confidence because it is harder to spot. In a brighter night, with stronger moonlight, the mouse might move less, or it might stay closer to cover because visibility has changed. The same night, the same grass, a different level of light, or imagine a bird that migrates, travelling long distances. Some migrating birds use the stars as guides, and they may also respond to the brightness of the sky. The moon can change that brightness. It can change how many stars are visible, and it can change the contrast of the sky. Nature is full of navigation, and navigation often depends on light, and insects too are sensitive to light. Many insects use the sky's brightness and patterns as cues. A bright moon can shift those cues. It can change where insects gather, how they move, and what they notice. Again, not drama, just small adjustments in a world that pays attention. When we say the moon changes things after midnight in nature, it can mean this. The moon's angle changes, so the direction of moonlight changes. The air can change, so the softness of moonlight changes, and the living world responds to these changes in tiny ways, mostly without anyone noticing. Even plants have a quiet relationship with light, though their relationship is slower. Plants do not have eyes, but they do have ways of sensing light, which simply means they can detect when light is present and use it as information. In the day, sunlight is the big signal. At night, darkness is the big signal. But moonlight is a faint signal layered on top. Moonlight is usually not strong enough to drive the kind of energy-making work that plants do in daytime, but it can still be a cue, like a whisper in a quiet room. It can shape the timing of certain behaviours, the opening and closing of some flowers, or the way leaves hold their positions. The details vary across species, and we don't need to catalogue them. The bedtime takeaway is simpler. Living things pay attention, and even small light can be part of what they feel. Now bring this back to you in the gentlest way. You're also a living thing with a light-sensitive system. Your eyes and your brain respond to light, and after midnight, your system is already in a softer, more receptive mode. So moonlight can become more meaningful, not because it is stronger, but because the rest of the world is quieter, and your inner night rhythm is deeper. If you're lying in bed with curtains that let in a faint glow, you might notice it more after midnight. If you're sleeping with the blinds slightly open, you might sense the light changing even through your eyelids. And if your room is fully dark, you might not notice moonlight at all, and that's perfectly fine too. The moon does not require your attention. It simply exists, doing its slow work. One calming way to think about all of this is to imagine the moon as a very gentle night lamp for the whole Earth. Not a lamp that points and demands, but a lamp that softly touches. It touches oceans, and it touches mountain, and it touches the roofs of sleeping cities. It touches the feathers of birds, the fur of cats, the leaves of trees, and it touches your world too, even if only by changing the sky's brightness above your roof. And it does this with incredible patience, because the moon is not racing, it is not flickering. It is moving in slow arcs and slow cycles that don't care about your to-do list. That slowness can be comforting when your mind feels busy. Now, as we move into a deeper layer of understanding, we can gently sort one common feeling from one common myth, without doing it harshly. Many people have heard stories about the moon changing mood. Some people say bright moon nights make them restless. Some people say moonlight makes emotions rise. And you might have noticed in your own life that some nights with strong moonlight feel different. If you felt that, you don't need to argue with yourself about it. Your experience is real as an experience. The question is simply what might be underneath it, in a calm, grounded way. One simple bridge is light itself. Light is not just what you see. Light is information for the body. Even small amounts of light can signal to the brain that it is not fully night. That signal can be stronger if your eyes are adapted to darkness, which often happens after midnight. So if moonlight reaches your eyes, it can nudge the brain slightly, making sleep lighter or changing timing in small ways. This does not mean moonlight will ruin your sleep. It simply means light is a gentle influence, like temperature or sound. A little light can shift how sleepy you feel, especially if you're already in a delicate place between wake and sleep. Another bridge is attention. After midnight, many people are less distracted. Your mind is not being pulled by daytime tasks, so your attention can stick to whatever is available. If the moon is bright, it becomes a natural focus. And when you focus on something, it can shape how you feel, not because the moon is controlling you, but because attention is powerful. If you stare at a calm candle, you often feel calmer. If you stare at the moon, you might feel something too. Wonder, nostalgia, quiet, or sometimes restlessness, if your brain associates that brightness with being awake. So rather than saying the moon makes you feel something, it can be kinder and more accurate to say moonlight is part of the environment, and environments shape feelings. And that is true without needing any drama. Now, let's return to the image in your room, because the most soothing science often begins with familiar objects. Imagine the moonlight stripe again. It is still sliding slowly. The edge between light and dark is still soft. And in that edge, you can see a small lesson about the universe. Because that edge is a boundary. It is a boundary created by geometry, by the line between the moon, your window, and the surface the light lands on. It is created by the turning Earth. It is created by the moon's position. And it is created by the fact that light travels in straight lines through space until it is nudged by air. Light, traveling in straight lines, sounds like a formal rule, but you can feel it simply. If you hold your hand in front of a lamp, you cast a shadow. That shadow exists because light is coming from a direction, and your hand blocks some of it. Moon shadows exist for the same reason. Moonlight is directional, so if you zoom out from that stripe of light, you can begin to see the larger shape of the system. Your room is sitting on Earth. Earth is turning. The moon is sitting in space, reflecting sunlight. The moon's position in your sky changes through the night. The air wraps around you, shaping the light. And you inside your room are changing too, shifting towards sleep. This is the hidden pattern we promised. 3 layers overlapping, and now we can do a gentle scale zoom from the smallest detail to a wider view in a way that feels comforting. First, the tiny detail, the boundary of a shadow on your wall. Second, the bigger idea, the direction of moonlight changing because Earth turns. Third, the wide idea, a whole planet rotating under a sky filled with objects that appear to move because you are the one in motion. When you hold these 3 steps together, the night can feel less random. It can feel like a slow dance. And if you've been anxious, there is something soothing about a dance that has a pattern. It means you do not have to invent stability. It is already there. Now let's touch one more quiet connection just lightly: the moon's surface. We mentioned earlier that the moon reflects sunlight well, and that it is dusty and bright in sunlight. The moon's surface is covered in fine dust and rock, and this dust can reflect light in a soft, pale way. That is one reason moonlight feels silvery. It is sunlight that has been softened by distance and reflection. If you could stand on the moon, the sky would look black even in daytime because there is no thick atmosphere there to scatter sunlight. Stars would be visible, the sun would be bright, shadows would be very sharp. But you are not on the moon. You are here, inside Earth's air blanket, where light is softened and spread, and where moonlight becomes gentle. And maybe that is why moonlight feels so suited to sleep. It is light that has travelled far and been mellowed. It is light that does not heat your skin the way sunlight does. It is light that does not demand action, it simply rests on surfaces. Humans have lived with the moon for a very long time. We used it to track months. We used it to time planting and harvest. We used it to travel at night before electric lights. We told stories under it. We watched it. We measured about it. We returned to it in our imagination again and again. So it makes sense in a quiet emotional way that the moon feels meaningful after midnight. It is an old companion in the human mind, but we don't need to make that meaning heavy tonight. We can keep it light, like moonlight itself, and there is still a gentle mystery here, a comforting unknown. Even when we explain the geometry and the atmosphere and the body clock, there can still be a feeling that the night holds something extra. Not a scary extra, a soft edge. The way the same room can feel different at 2 a.m. than it did at 9 p.m, even if nothing obvious changed. Some of that is perception. Some of that is memory. Some of that is the way tiredness shifts the mind into a more dream-ready mode. And some of it is simply that you are allowed to experience the world differently at different times. We don't need to solve every last ounce of that feeling. In fact, part of what makes bedtime comforting is not needing to solve. It's okay to let some wonder remain. We can know a lot and still allow the night to be gentle and mysterious. Now, before we soften further, let's gather the main thread of this whole exploration in one calm, simple statement. After midnight, the moon changes your light and shadow because its angle changes as Earth turns. After midnight, the air can change how that light looks because the atmosphere cools and shifts. After midnight, your mind can change how that light feels because your body clock is deeper into night. And all the while, the moon is shaping the tides, the slow breathing of the sea, whether you're watching or sleeping. That is the science in its bedtime form. And maybe you can notice something else very softly, without trying. After midnight, the world often feels more honest. In the daytime, light fills in every corner, and the brain can pretend it has control because it can see so much. At night, the world gives you fewer details, and that can be calming in a strange way. Less to manage, less to solve. Moonlight offers just enough shape to feel oriented, and not so much that your mind has to stay busy. People have wondered about the moon and human feelings for a very long time, and if you've ever felt that a bright moon night changes your mood, you don't need to argue with yourself about it. Your experience is real as an experience. The gentle question is simply, what might be underneath it, in a calm, grounded way? One simple bridge is light itself. Light is not only what you see, light is information for the body. Even small amounts of light can signal to the brain that it is not fully night. That signal can be stronger if your eyes are adapted to darkness, which often happens after midnight. So if moonlight reaches your eyes, it can nudge the brain slightly, making sleep lighter, or changing timing in small ways. It's not a dramatic shift, it's more like a quiet tap on the shoulder. Another bridge is attention. After midnight, many distractions are gone. Your mind is not being pulled by daytime tasks, so attention can stick to whatever is available. If the moon is bright, it becomes a natural focus, and when you focus on something, it can shape how you feel. Not because the moon is controlling you, but because attention is powerful. In that way, the moon can act like a mirror for attention. If you feel peaceful, moonlight can feel peaceful. If you feel restless, moonlight can feel a little too present. This isn't the moon changing you. It's the moon reflecting your current state, the way a still lake reflects whatever leans over it. There is also a simple change in the world after midnight. Human-made light often decreases. Many windows go dark, shops close, streets become quieter, and when the human lights calm down, the moon can stand out more strongly, and the sky can look deeper, not because new stars appear, but because the background glare is less. So sometimes after midnight, the moon changes what the sky allows you to notice, not by adding new things, but by shifting contrast, which simply means the difference between light and dark. Now let's return to the idea of midnight as a turning point. If midnight is not a switch, why does it feel like one? One reason is story. Humans like chapters. We like before and after. We like clean lines. Another reason is biology. Your inner timing is deepening. Your system is shifting further away from daytime alertness. Even if you're not asleep, your body is increasingly in night mode, and night mode has a particular flavour. It can feel more sensitive and more reflective. So after midnight can be a real psychological threshold, not because the moon flips a switch, but because your body is on a rhythm, the world is quieter, and the sky's geometry has changed enough to feel noticeable. And that is a kind, grounded explanation that still leaves room for wonder. You are lying on a planet that spins. You are wrapped in a blanket of air that flows and cools. You are under a moon that reflects sunlight across space. You are part of an ocean of motion, even when your body is still, and your breath is a small version of that motion, in and out. Now we can gather the main thread again in softer words, as if we are rocking it back and forth. The moon changes its place in your sky as the night goes on. That changes the direction of its light. The air changes as the night cools and settles. That changes the softness of the light. Your body changes as you move deeper into night. That changes how you feel the light. If you ever get lost in details, you can come back to those three changes and let everything else drift. And if thoughts tug at you, you can follow the physical world instead. Feel the weight of the blanket. Feel the steady contact between your body and the bed. Feel the cool air at the tip of your nose as you inhale. Feel the warmth inside your chest as you exhale. These sensations are quiet anchors. Now we begin to soften further, letting the science become more like a lullaby, with gentle repetition. Imagine the moon outside. It is there. Imagine its light travelling. Imagine the air receiving it. Imagine your room receiving it. Imagine your breath receiving the moment. In and out. In and out. If your mind wanders, that's okay. If you lose track of a sentence, that's okay. If you fall asleep, that's more than okay. Now picture the stripe of moonlight one last time as clearly as you want to. See it sliding slowly, almost imperceptibly. See the shadow shifting with it, quiet and patient. See how the world does not need you to watch it for it to continue. And feel how you do not need to control the night for the night to move forward. You can let the night do what it does. You can let the moon do what it does. You can let your body do what it does. You can let sleep arrive whenever it arrives, in its own gentle way. And as you rest with that, you can allow one last gentle thought about the living world outside. Somewhere a tree is standing with its leaves turned toward the sky. The leaves do not look at the moon, but they exist in the moon's light, and that light is part of the night's atmosphere. Somewhere, a small insect pauses on a blade of grass, sensing brightness and darkness in the simplest way as information. Somewhere, a bird is sleeping with its head tucked in, and somewhere else, a night bird is awake, moving softly from branch to branch. All of them are sharing the same slow turning Earth. If you could zoom out far enough, you would see the night side of Earth like a calm curve, scattered with small human lights and covered by a thin glow of air. You would see clouds like quiet swirls, and you would see the moon nearby, not touching Earth with hands, but with influence, with light, with gravity, with rhythm. It's a comforting zoom, because it reminds you that you are not alone inside your night. You are part of a larger night that includes oceans and forests and sleeping towns and wide skies. The moon is above all of it, steady, patient, never rushing, and there is a gentle edge of mystery we can keep, just to make the night feel soft instead of solved. Even when you know the reasons, the feeling of moonlight can still be special. The way it changes the colour of a room, the way it makes familiar objects look like quiet sculptures, the way it makes time feel slower. Science can explain the pieces, and you can still let the whole feel like a calm secret between you and the sky. So you don't have to choose between understanding and wonder. You can have both. You can understand that Earth turns and still feel the magic of noticing a stripe of light move across the floor. You can understand that air scatters light and still feel comfort when the moon looks soft behind a thin veil of cloud. You can understand that your body clock deepens at night and still feel amazed that your mind can drift into dreams on something as simple as breath. And now, with that balance, you can let the words become even simpler. In and out. The moon above, the air around, the bed beneath, your breath moving, your thoughts loosening, sleep coming closer, the way night always moves closer to morning, without effort, without force. If you're still awake, you can let your eyes rest behind your eyelids, as if they are watching darkness instead of images. If you're already drifting, you can let the sounds of these sentences blur, like edges in moonlight. Nothing needs to be held tightly. The night is doing its slow turning for you. And the moon, wherever it is right now in your sky, will keep sliding along its arc, patient and quiet, while you soften little by little into sleep. If you're still awake, just notice that you're here, you're safe, you're allowed to be tired, and you're allowed to let the night carry you without forcing anything to happen. If you've been listening for a while, you don't need to do anything differently now. You can simply keep resting the way a hand rests on a warm blanket, with no effort at all. We've been moving through a quiet pattern, and you can hold it lightly, like a smooth pebble in your palm. The moon's position changes as Earth turns. The air changes as the night cools and settles, and you change too as your body moves deeper into its natural night rhythm. 3 layers overlapping softly like thin sheets of calm. Now, instead of adding more ideas, we're going to let the ideas become simpler. We're going to let them slow down. We're going to let them repeat in a soothing way, not because repetition is boring, but because repetition is how lullabies work. It's how waves work. It's how breathing works. And it's how sleep begins to arrive, one gentle moment at a time. So imagine the moon again. You don't need to picture it perfectly, just a sense of it. A pale circle or a crescent or a bright curve in a dark sky. And imagine that light, not rushing, not shimmering loudly, just travelling. Travelling from the moon toward Earth, travelling through the clear and visible air. The atmosphere, that blanket of air around Earth, is always there, holding you without asking for attention. And tonight, in this late hour, that air often feels calmer, cooler, more settled. Sometimes it becomes clearer, sometimes it becomes softer with moisture. Either way, it is doing what it does, quietly, with no drama, And then that moonlight reaches your world. It touches rooftops and treetops. It touches empty roads. It touches the edges of windows. It finds little openings where curtains don't fully meet. It finds the small spaces where a blind is slightly tilted. And if it reaches your room, it becomes a shape, a stripe, a patch, a faint glow. That glow might land on a wall. It might land on a floor. It might land on the curve of a blanket. And it stays there for a while, then it slowly slides. So slowly you can't see it move from one second to the next. But you can sense that it is not frozen. It is part of the turning, and Earth is turning. Not a frantic spin, not something you need to think about like a machine, just a slow, steady turning the way a planet turns when it has turned for billions of years and has no reason to hurry. You are on that turning Earth. Your room is on that turning Earth. Your bed is on that turning Earth. So when moonlight shifts, it is not the moon suddenly choosing a new behaviour. It is Earth carrying you under a changing angle of light. The direction of moonlight changes, and shadows respond. Shadows are quiet timekeepers. They stretch, they shrink, they tilt, they soften. They do it without sound, without judgment. And if you could watch them for long enough, you would see them moving like a slow dance. Now, in this late hour, your mind is also changing. Your body clock, your circadian rhythm, which simply means your inner daily timing system, is deep in its night phase. That can make your thoughts feel different. It can make your attention feel softer. It can make small things feel more noticeable, not because they are larger, but because everything else is quieter. Your eyes too become more sensitive in darkness. They shift into a mode that notices faint light. So moonlight can feel brighter after midnight, not necessarily because the moon is brighter, but because you are more tuned to it. The world is dimmer around it. Your senses are listening more closely, and somewhere far away the ocean is still moving. The tide is rising in one place and falling in another. The moon's gravity is part of that rhythm, shaping the sea in gentle bulges, a slow breathing that continues whether anyone is awake to witness it. The planet has its own calm motions that never pause for human schedules. All of this is happening at once: moon, air, turning Earth, your sleepy mind, the breathing ocean. And you don't have to hold it all. You can let it be a background lullaby. You can let it be a feeling of slow movement rather than a set of facts. Now we begin to drift on purpose. We begin to soften the language, to let it become more rhythmic, more repetitive, more dream-friendly. So for a little while you can follow a simple set of anchors. The turning Earth, the breathing air, the sleepy brain, the turning Earth, the breathing air, the sleepy brain. You don't need to repeat it out loud, you can simply let the pattern land in you the way a gentle phrase can land in the body without effort. And if your mind wanders away, you can come back to those three anchors as if you are coming back to a familiar shorelines. The turning Earth which carries you under the moon, the breathing air which shapes the texture of the light, the sleepy brain which changes how the light feels. Now take one slow breath in and let it out slowly, a little longer, as if your exhale is smoothing the surface of a lake. In and out, and again, in and out. As you breathe, imagine that with each exhale, your shoulders drop a little more, your jaw softens, the muscles around your eyes relax, your hands become heavier, your legs sink into the mattress. You don't have to push them down, gravity already knows what to do, you can simply stop holding yourself up. Now, a gentle visualization. Imagine you are watching that stripe of moonlight move across a room, not necessarily your room, but a quiet room somewhere. The room is still, the furniture is calm, the air is cool, and the moonlight is a pale ribbon on the floor. At first, the ribbon is near the window. Then very slowly it slides, not quickly enough to measure, just enough to notice over time. It slides across the floorboards, it slides across a rug, It slides toward the leg of a chair, and as it slides, the shadows shift, tiny and obedient. A table leg shadow moves a little. A plant shadow changes shape slightly, and the whole room stays peaceful. There is no sound to the movement. The movement is not demanding. It is just time, made visible in light. Now let's add a soft question chain, the kind of questions that feel like a warm hand on the forehead, not like a test. Where is the moon right now in your sky, even if you can't see it? Where is the light right now in your room, even if you can't see it? And where is your breath right now in your body? You don't need exact answers. You can respond with a feeling instead of words. The moon is somewhere above. The light is somewhere nearby. The breath is here, in and out. If a thought appears, you can let it be like a cloud crossing the moon. The moon doesn't chase the cloud. The moon doesn't argue with the cloud. It simply continues to shine, and the cloud continues to drift, and eventually the cloud passes. You can do the same with thoughts. If a worry arrives, you don't have to solve it tonight. If a memory arrives, you don't have to analyze it tonight. If a plan arrives, you don't have to complete it tonight. You can simply notice a thought and let it drift by. And if the thought feels sticky, you can return to the gentle anchors. The turning earth, the breathing air, the sleepy brain. Now, in a dream-friendly way, we can revisit the whole journey in a single soft sweep, without adding anything new. Just a calm recap, like a bedtime story repeating familiar lines. The moon seems to move because Earth turns. Moonlight shifts across rooms because the angle of the light changes. The air shapes the look of the moonlight, making it crisp or soft. Your eyes and mind become more sensitive in the late night. The ocean rises and falls in tides, guided partly by the moon's pull. Nature listens to light, quietly in small ways, and you, here in bed, are allowed to rest through all of it. That's the whole story in simple words. Now, we soften even more. We let the sentences become shorter. We let the pace slow. We let the spaces between ideas grow wider, like the spaces between gentle waves. Imagine the moon again, not as a bright object you must study, just as a presence, a quiet light in the sky, a reminder of slow cycles, a reminder that time can move without your effort. Now imagine the atmosphere again, that blanket of air, that invisible softness around Earth, holding warmth and coolness, holding moisture and clarity, making light look different from hour to hour. Now imagine your body again, heavy, safe, supported, breathing, not in a hurry. Now the stripe of moonlight. If it's there, it rests. If it's not there, the darkness rests. Either way, the room is calm. Now there's a sweet, simple truth you can keep close as you drift. Most of what the moon changes after midnight is not the moon changing. It is the relationship between you and the moon changing. The angles shift, the air shifts, your sensitivity shifts. That's all. And that's all is beautiful, because it means the world is doing ordinary, steady things. Ordinary, steady things are what sleep likes. Sleep does not need fireworks. Sleep does not need answers. Sleep likes rhythm. Sleep likes softness. Sleep likes safety. So we will keep the rhythm in and out, in and out. You can imagine your breath as a tide. A slow inhale, like the sea coming in. A slow exhale, like the sea going out. And somewhere far away, the real tide is doing the same thing. On a shoreline under the moon, the planet is breathing, and you are breathing, and the moon is shining, and the air is holding, and the earth is turning. It's almost too gentle to be called a story. It's more like a lullaby the universe hums. Now, as we near the end, there is no need for a sharp conclusion. We don't want a door slamming shut. We want the sound to fade like footsteps down a hallway, getting softer, then softer, until you can't tell where they went. So very softly, here is the calm summary again, as if it's a small blanket tucked around the edges. After midnight, the moon changes how its light falls through your world because the Earth turns. After midnight, the air can change how that light looks because the atmosphere cools and shifts. After midnight, you change how that light feels because your mind and body are deep in night. And through it all, the moon helps shape the tides steady and slow. That's enough to understand, and if you don't remember it tomorrow, that's also fine. Tonight is for rest. You've done enough simply by being here. You've done enough simply by breathing. You don't have to hold the night up on your shoulders, the night can hold you. If you're still awake, let your eyelids feel heavy, as if they are settling into warm water. Let your forehead smooth out. Let your tongue rest. Let your shoulders melt. Let your hands loosen. Let your legs sink. Feel the bed supporting you in the simplest way, like the ground supports a tree. Now one last image to carry you, open-ended, gentle and quiet. Picture the moonlight resting on the world, on rooftops, on leaves, on silent roads, on the curve of the sea. Picture shadows dissolving at their edges, soft as smoke that doesn't sting. Picture the earth turning kindly without stopping, without rushing, and picture you, here, safe in the dark, allowed to let go. Good night. And if sleep comes now, let it come, and if sleep comes later, let it come later. Either way, the moon will keep its patient arc, and the world will keep its slow, steady turning while you drift little by little into quiet.